TCAS. The Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance System is an aircraft collision system designed to reduce the incidence of mid-air collisions between aircraft. It monitors the airspace around an aircraft for other aircraft equipped with an active transponder. It is independent of air traffic control and warns pilots of the presence of other transponder-equipped aircraft which may present a threat. It's an implementation of the Airborne Collision Avoidance System mandated by ICAO to be fitted to all aircraft over 5,700 kilograms or authorised to carry more than 19 passengers. In modern glass cockpit aircraft, the TCAS display may be integrated into the navigation display. In older glass cockpit aircraft and those with mechanical instrumentation, such as integrated TCAS display, may replace the mechanical instantaneous VSI, which indicates the rate at which the aircraft is descending or climbing. In 1956, the Grand Canyon mid-air collision occurred when United Airlines Flight 718, the Douglas DC-7, en route to LA to Chicago, collided in mid-air with a Lockheed Super Constellation en route from LA to Kansas City. All 58 people on board Flight 718 and 70 people aboard the TWA flight were killed. Air traffic control was underfunded and undermanned and without radar, and was unable to separate traffic outside clearly demarcated airways and zones around major airports. Outside of those areas, aircraft were expected to separate themselves using the see and be seen principle. In 1976, a British Airways Trident en route from Heathrow to Istanbul collided in mid-air over Zagreb with a DC-9 from Yugoslavia en route to West Germany. All 176 people aboard both flights were killed. In 1978, Pacific Southwest Airlines Boeing 727 collided over San Diego with a privately operated Cessna 172. The death toll of 144 made it at the time the deadliest aircraft disaster in the history of the United States. The Boeing crashed into a San Diego neighborhood, killing all 135 people on board, as well as the 2 people on board the Cessna. 7 people on the ground were killed and others injured. It took another mid-air collision involving a light aircraft in 1986, similar to PSA Flight 182, which finally spurred the US Congress and other regulatory bodies into action and led to the mandatory installation of collision avoidance equipment. An Aeromexico DC-9 en route from Mexico City to LA collided with a privately owned PA-28 over California, killing all 67 people on board both aircraft and 15 people on the ground. As a result of this incident and other near mid-air collisions in terminal control areas, the FAA required that all commercial aircraft be equipped with traffic alert and collision avoidance systems, and required that light aircraft operating in dense airspaces be equipped with Mode C altitude reporting transponders. TCAS involves communication between all aircraft equipped with an appropriate transponder. Each TCAS-equipped aircraft interrogates all other aircraft within a determined distance from their position via the 1030 MHz radio frequency, and all other aircraft reply to the interrogations via 1090 MHz. This interrogation and response cycle may occur several times per second. Through these constant back and forth communications, the TCAS system builds a 3-dimensional map of aircraft in the airspace, incorporating their bearings, altitude and ranges. Then by extrapolating current range and altitude trends, anticipated future positions may be derived, and a potential collision threat may be determined. TCAS and its variants are only able to interact with aircraft that have a correctly operating transponder. A unique 24-bit identifier is assigned to each aircraft upon manufacture and is entered into the transponder. The next step beyond identifying potential collisions is automatically negotiating a mutual avoidance manoeuvre. Currently, manoeuvres are restricted to changes in altitude and modification of climb sync rates between the two or more conflicting aircraft. These avoidance manoeuvres are communicated to the flight crew by a cockpit display and by synthesized voice instructions. The TOW area is a protective area around the aircraft. When an intruder aircraft enters, TCAS triggers an alarm. The threshold of the TOW area is defined by time. TOW means time. In other words, TOW is the time to go to the closest point of approach. The time to go is the distance divided by the closure rate, both combined vertically and horizontally. For example, if a TOW value of 30 seconds is used for an alarm threshold, as soon as the intruder's time to go to the closest point of approach reaches 30 seconds, then a TCAS alarm is triggered. A fast approaching intruder may be 6 nautical miles away from the CPA when crossing its TOW threshold, while another, a slower intruder, half as fast, may only be 3 nautical miles away. In addition to this logic, TCAS uses different TOW values at different altitudes. The higher the altitude, the larger the TOW area, the greater the sensitivity level. There are cases when a closure rate is so slow that the TOW area will never be entered, while the physical separation, however, may be just a fraction of a mile. In such a critical scenario, the calculated closure rate is no longer useful, as a sudden increase in the closure rate would leave no room for an advance warning. This problem has been eliminated by an additional distance modification, DMOD. Time or closure rate are not a factor here. DMOD affects only the physical separation between the aircraft and the target. DMOD values also vary with altitude. Traffic advisories, TAs, are displayed in the form of the word traffic in yellow in the navigation display. They are accompanied by the oral voice enunciation, traffic, traffic. This is not the highest alert level. Its purpose is first to call attention to a possible conflict. TCAS triggers a TA as soon as an intruder enters the TA-specific DMOD or TOW area. If no altitude data is available from the intruder aircraft, TCAS assumes the intruder's relative altitude is within 1200 feet. If bearing information is available, the intruder can be identified on the navigation display by a yellow solid circle. Otherwise, the circle is removed and lateral distance and relative altitude with the vertical motion arrow, if motion is detected, is displayed in yellow numbers under the word traffic. This screenshot shows a target approaching from 900 feet below. -09 means -900. It has just crossed the TOW threshold for a TA. RA means resolution advisory, the highest alert level. Its purpose is to resolve a conflict by providing the pilot with oral and visual pitch commands. The pilot has to disengage the autopilot immediately, as the escape maneuver has to be flown manually. Flight director commands as well as ATC advisories have to be ignored. The pitch command of a RA always has the highest priority. TCAS triggers an RA when a target enters the RA-specific DMOD or TOW area. If no altitude data is available from the target, an RA cannot occur. If bearing information is available, the intruder can be identified on the navigation display by a red solid square. Otherwise, the square is removed and lateral distance and relative altitude with vertical motion arrow, if motion is detected, is displayed in red numbers under the word traffic. Targets. Proximate. Targets are detected within a range of 6 nautical miles from the own aircraft, and if the target sends altitude information within 1200 feet relative altitude. These targets are represented on the navigation display as solid white diamonds, lozenges. Other. Targets detected within a range of 40 to 7 nautical miles from the own aircraft, and if the target sends altitude information within 2,700 and 1,201 feet relative altitude. These targets are represented on the navigation display as outlined white diamonds, lozenges. They do not cause an alarm to be triggered. RAs inhibited. TCAS will not issue a descent command when the aircraft is at low altitudes. Below 1,450 feet rad-alt, all increased descent RAs are inhibited. Below 1,000 feet rad-alt, all descend RAs are inhibited. Below 500 feet rad altitude, all RAs are inhibited and TA only mode is engaged. Below 400 feet rad alt or during wind shear warning, all oral TCAS enunciations are inhibited. TCAS 1. TCAS 1 is the first generation of collision avoidance technology. It's cheaper but less capable than the modern TCAS 2 system and is mainly intended for general aviation use. TCAS 1 systems are able to monitor the traffic situation around a plane to a range of about 40 miles and offer information on the approximate bearing and altitude of other aircraft. It can also generate collision warnings in the form of a traffic advisory. The TA warns the pilot that another aircraft is in near vicinity announcing traffic, but does not offer any suggested remedy. It is up to the pilot to decide what to do, usually with the assistance of air traffic control. When a threat has passed, the system announces clear of conflict. TCAS 2 is the second and current generation of TCAS, used in the majority of commercial aviation aircraft. It offers all the benefits of TCAS 1, but also offers the pilot direct focalized instructions to avoid danger, known as resolution advisories. The suggestive action may be corrective, suggesting the pilot change vertical speed by announcing descend, descend, climb, climb, or adjust vertical speed, adjust, meaning reduced or increase vertical speed. By contrast, a preventative RA may be issued which simply warns the pilots not to deviate from their present vertical speed, announcing monitor vertical speed or maintain vertical speed. TCAS 2 systems coordinate their resolution advisories before issuing commands to the pilots, so that if one aircraft is instructed to descend, the other will be typically told to climb, maximising the separation between the two aircraft. TCAS 2, some drawbacks. TCAS 2 depends on the accuracy of the threat aircraft's reported altitude and on the expectation that the threat aircraft will not make an abrupt manoeuvre that defeats the TCAS resolution advisory. One potential problem with TCAS 2 is the possibility that a recommended avoidance manoeuvre might direct the flight crew to descend toward terrain below a safe altitude. Recent requirements for incorporation of ground proximity mitigate this risk. Ground proximity warning alerts have priority in the cockpit over TCAS alerts. Some pilots have been unsure how to act when their aircraft was requested to climb whilst flying at their maximum altitude. The accepted procedure is to follow the climb RA as best as possible, temporarily changing speed for height. The climb RA should quickly finish. In the event of a stall warning, the stall warning would take priority. TCAS does not take stall margin into account. If one aircraft follows a resolution advisory and the other follows conflicting ATC instructions, a collision could occur. In 2002, two aircraft, both fitted with TCAS-2 systems, crashed in mid-air over Überlingen near Lake Constance. The DHL Boeing 757 obeyed the TCAS-2 advisory, while the Tupolev 154 ignored the TCAS and obeyed the controller. Both aircraft descended, resulting in a fatal collision killing all 71 people on board. In EASA states, a resolution advisory may only be disregarded when both pilots visually identify the potentially conflicting traffic and decide no deviation from the current flight path is needed. German official investigators determined that the accident had been caused by problems with the air traffic control system and problems with the use of the collision warning system. Sadly, in February 2004, the controller who was on duty at the time was stabbed to death by a man who'd lost his wife and two children in the accident.